This week we talk about Target's bouginess, the serfdom of Walmart, and why Kmart blocking a major road is a good thing. We look at the alt-right and just right-wingers' victimhood complex.
Their horniness.
As well as a story I have about a support group I run and people getting furious over a minute detail to try and curb sexual harassment. As usual, hot takes on rats, looking at some alien octopuses as well, adult movie bags at the supermarket, and why kids should read analog clocks. This week on Mission Accomplishers. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Welcome all to Mission Accomplishers. Hunter Hawes, Eric Nelson here with you
Hey.
on Mission Accomplishers, preeminent, almost live radio program. We do this Saturdays, 7 p.m. on AM 950 here in the Twin Cities and podcasted around the globe.
Yeah, if any news is old by the time it gets out to you, it doesn't matter. What happens at 6 p.m. on a Sunday? Never mind, Saturday.
Saturday. No, we are the bona fide cutting edge radio program / podcast. But last night, I had kind of a interesting experience. It turned into a whole ordeal, but what happened was...
Do tell.
I run a support group, and there's about 20, 30 people that attend each week.
Is this supposed to be a secret group?
It may be something that I'm not supposed to disclose who the members are of this organization.
The Weathermen.
Yesterday, it's a group that's it's very democratic, like how it's run. Every group is unique, and there's just a list of principles that you have to follow to be a part of this organization. And other than that, you can kind of run your meetings however you want. And someone called for a group conscience meeting. So after our actual meeting, people stuck around to discuss how the meeting's going to be run in the future. It's something that's common, but this was just kind of brought up, so we held it because one person specifically wanted to have this meeting. But recently, it was brought to my attention that we offer a phone list of the members of the group, and that the phone list had been being used to harass women and have people just contact them unsolicited. And it was several different examples of different girls.
And not related to the purpose of the group.
No, yeah, absolutely. So the phone list is just to be connected, to use it regarding what our group is for.
These were individuals who were like, ooh, women.
Mm-hmm. And so I proposed a couple weeks ago that we change the phone list to be separated by gender. So there was a male version and a female version, and we passed those phone lists around, and you grab accordingly to just try and make an effort to have things be more welcoming and be a safe environment for people to get healthy. And people did not like this. Certain people were very angry about this. And the exact way the person who called this group conscience meeting described it is that it was discrimination. And so we had a meeting, and there was about 3 of these people that were extremely upset about the two gendered phone lists. And they were just loud, angry. This meeting took an hour to talk about just 2 phone lists. And really, these phone lists are not that important of a thing.
Sure. Well, they are if that's how you find possible dates.
Yeah, if they're being used poorly. And an argument they kept using was that this is the only meeting that has 2 phone lists. And I'm like, well, that's not a reason to not do it.
And I find that hard to believe. This sounds like a pretty basic
Yeah.
rule.
But as actually, I haven't seen 2 anywhere else either. But regardless, that's not a reason to not do it. And the whole point is to just take a step towards creating that safe environment.
Sure. And you could say, all right, I don't know if people are being harassed in those other groups.
Mm-hmm.
They are in this group, so we don't care about what other groups are doing.
Absolutely. And since the phone lists have switched, the amount of women that show up to the meeting has increased. And I've never heard anything negative about the 2 phone lists from any female. It's all been straight white guys that get angry at doing anything to address something of like a marginalized group or just a women, sexual orientation, race. Anytime you do something like that, a certain type of person gets triggered by it. But
I have a personal theory that those people, were they any other group, would be the exact same people that they're complaining about more often than not. Probably the most severe cases.
wait, explain that a bit.
Just when you hear, oh, you want a safe space? Oh,
Yeah.
Neon-colored hair, feminist, Nazi.
So, this was kind of sprung out of the blue, so people didn't know that this is what the meeting was. And then this guy who called it about said he wanted to vote to change it to a one phone list again. And I go, well, can I make a suggestion that before we hold a vote to change that, could we get feedback from the other girls in the group and then decide next week, just table it for a single week? And this just set him completely off. And he goes, I've never felt so much discrimination where I wasn't even allowed to vote in a meeting. And I'm like, that's not at all what I said.
I would have just not stopped, let him talking.
And so it was about an hour-long meeting, and it took about 20 minutes before any girl said anything because these guys were so loud about how they felt and their theories of why this is bad. And someone pointed out that it's like, well, why don't we hear from some of the women of the group? So the 3 girls that stuck around all said that the phone list is a very good idea and they like it.
Sure, the people who it is originally made for and who it's affecting the most. Mm-hmm. I mean, is there a shortage of other men that they can call? Is there a reason why they need to?
Well, yeah, a great point one of the girls said was if she was using a phone list to call someone because she needed help, the only reason she would call a man that she didn't already have the number of was if she had bad intentions.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You can call the women in your group. They just have to give you their numbers specifically.
Exactly. The point, it's like...
you're not banned from being friends with these people.
And I said what I would start doing is announce that it's completely okay to have relationships, friendships, and support of people of the opposite sex, but you just have to seek consent for their phone number. That's the only thing. And it's like that's minor. That's fair. But they weren't having it. They were extremely angry. Eventually, we did put it to a vote and kept the 2 phone lists. But, yeah, it's just interesting that people get so offended at trying to address anything like this. They take it as a personal hit on them. And it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't personally get offended when I hear stuff about white people or about men.
Yeah, I know.
Because I know, yeah, those are the people who do it. I personally do not.
Absolutely.
But I realize that, the majority of violence is committed by men.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, just the fact of trying to take a step and address it and have something public, it just shows that it's not a behavior that we encourage. Sure, people could find ways around it, but that's not the point. It's just making an attempt to just make things better for everyone. But, yeah, that was quite an experience. Some breaking news occurring currently, Saturday night, Target customers across the country are experiencing a nationwide computer malfunction at Target stores. So the cash registers today, what's the date today? It's June
15th.
June 15th, Saturday, June 15th.
Dads and grads.
Target is a complete disaster. It's just chaos. It's like a hurricane occurred and people are just looting. Well, I don't know if that's true actually, but there's a
loot.
The registers aren't working today. It's pretty bizarre, but there's pictures if you look it up of just these huge lines of people held up, and they're trying to get the word out that Target is going through some massive problems.
So their cash register is down completely. They can't use
cash? It's a
Or is this a credit card situation?
It says specifically not only are our registers down, self-checkouts are working, but very slowly, but so are our My Devices, so we are unable to backstock products from the truck or check stockroom quantities for guests, as well as cashier malfunctions.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, so
I can't wait to go to Target after we record this and harass some low-wage workers. Why don't you fix this?
So, are you a Target shopper, or do you have a different preference?
When I have to go to a similar kind of everything store, yeah, I guess I go to Target just because there's one next to my house. I'm not opposed to going to Walmart though.
Target is it's the classiest option of these. It's known as compared to Walmart, Kmart.
That's true, but I almost question, does Target treat its employees that much better? I know that Walmart gets a bad rap, and it deserves it, but does Target deserve a good rap?
Well, I know that
it's obviously dressed up to appeal to, the fancy middle class.
Mm-hmm. But our friend, your brother's wife, she worked at Target when we were growing up.
In the corporate offices, though.
For about 8 years and barely rose at all, like the just career ladder. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of advancement at Target, or that they look out for like your career interest.
That's true.
For being a loyal employee. So
I mean, she was looking for a way out the entire time I knew her.
But she stuck at it for a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah.
But I like Walmart just because they have a lot of tools for people in poverty. So it's useful for me.
It's a cool store because they have crazy stuff you would never expect to find at a Walmart.
And then they've got like the money services and I don't know, just a bunch of weird things for...
Well, that's the fantasy of the Waltons, is that everyone works in a Walmart.
Yeah.
Everyone gets paid at the Walmart. They cash their checks at the Walmart. They use the money in Walmart.
That currency is Walmart gift cards.
Yeah, and it just kind of becomes a serfdom.
Yeah. So I like Walmart, but I like Target too. God, and that Kmart in Uptown, it's remarkable that thing is still there,
it's sitting
blocking Nicollet Avenue.
An extremely expensive piece of real estate.
Yeah, so is that what holds it up?
I think that whatever group owns that Kmart is just holding on to it for as long as they can.
Yeah. I heard some rumblings that it was potentially going to change, but nothing's happened yet.
Those rumors always exist.
Yeah.
But I think you have a contrary opinion on this.
Sure.
That Eat Street only exists as it is because of that Walmart. As soon as you open up Nicollet straight through, that all of a sudden becomes a Lake Street.
Yeah.
Or not I guess a Lake Street. It becomes a Hennepin, a Lindale.
Yeah, you're right. It does kind of create a thriving culture because of the amount of traffic coming by. Because you have to take a turn there.
Yeah, it takes all the smaller Hmong restaurants, the Vietnamese restaurants, the Mexican restaurants that are family owned and turns them into that one ice cream store that always has a line around the block for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so fair point. On the same note, there's a supermarket that is using embarrassing plastic bags so customers will remember to bring their reusable ones. So these bags, they have one says Adult Video Emporium and another says Colon Care to Go. So they're using these bags that are embarrassing for people to be holding around, so people remember to bring their just reusable permanent bags.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they would have the opposite effect on me.
Well,
Because
for
I
us,
think it's funny.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We'd be just asking for more. But I love it. It's just funny.
It is. But also, just don't stock plastic bags. Like, you
Yeah.
can stock paper bags.
Yeah.
I know I used to work at Rainbow Foods, RIP, but they would always tell us, actually, because I was a bagger at the time, actually, the plastic bags are easier to bag, and they're better, and there's all of this stuff. Because they cost like 4 cents as opposed to the, I think, 21 cents the paper bags cost.
Yeah, paper bags are so much better for stacking lots of groceries.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want one of those adult video emporium plastic bags now.
Because when you go to actual adult video emporiums, they just give you a black bag.
Yeah, very discreet packaging for leaving those. You will not find some members of the alt-right carrying these bags because hate groups, among some, they view porn as a conspiracy.
Oh, yeah.
So there's
It's the Jays.
the Proud Boys. The New York Times article mentions that there's people on 4chan and the Proud Boys that want to take down the porn industry because they believe that it's a Jewish conspiracy to corrupt the world. I mean, that's kind of classic anti-Semitism, though. That was what Hitler felt, that the Jewish people were responsible for the
degradation.
Yes, as society.
And the poisoning of the gene pool. Interracial porn is designed to do whatever. I don't know.
So there's a movement of no-fap that's been going on for a long time where young men are encouraged not to masturbate because of the benefits to boosting your testosterone and be ready to impregnate your future wife.
Also, I think it just helps the movement if everyone is very angry.
Yeah, I know. What a great way to just get pent-up anxiety and resentment. But these no-fap alt-right Jewish conspiracies towards porno people are going to have problems later on in life with their colons by repressing a natural emptying of the pipes.
It all comes out eventually, I thought.
Yeah, in your sleep.
But then you're just ruining bed sheets.
Yeah. So, yep, the alt-right, surprisingly, certain members, they do not like porno.
That is not surprising.
Well, I just picture them as like lonely dudes without a girlfriend that have a bunch of pent-up rage. So that porn would be an escape for them. So what are they really getting enjoyment out of in life in general?
So you're assuming that they are not still using it and just taking a public stance against it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's one of the rules of the Proud Boys, right? You are allowed to masturbate once a month, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. That is how they have it. What a bizarre rule. But I just
I mean, all the Proud Boys rules are stupid. I think that's kind of part of the appeal is that they have a lot of tongue-in-cheek dumb rules.
Yeah.
Like you have to get beat in while naming 5 cereals.
It's very similar to the like Skull and Bones traditions of just these bizarre things.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same reasoning behind it.
No, but it is similar.
Yeah, it might come from the same place. At this point, we've kind of placed so much weird interpretations of the Skull and Bones rituals that we think that it's evil magic as opposed to just dumbasses.
Yeah. The alt-right, the people gave that so much attention, like shortly after the election, and like attributed Trump winning due to these young internet men and their influence in swaying the election. But I really don't think they have as much of an impact as we made it out to be at that time. I think it was just such a juicy story to talk about because of their just like radical views and
Yeah, but I think it's also the media looking at people who are otherwise pretty alienated from the political sphere, all of a sudden becoming engaged. And a lot of the fascist movements you see in society are angry young men.
yeah, that is a great point. How this does mirror the past.
I don't think that it's a group that has reached critical mass or ever will reach critical mass, but it mirrors something that can exist.
Sure. It seems like the alt-right currently cannot agree on anything. There's not much like consistency of
that's the
opinion and belief.
The problem with being extremely large tent, where if you just take any sort of degenerate ideology and then a couple months down the road, you start to see the schisms in those ideas between each other.
Yeah. So, and I mean, they don't have as much to blame because Republicans control everything right now. So you see just that fracturing, and then like you have some that are Yang Gang supporting Andrew Yang. You still have some with the like classic anti-Semitism and racist views, and then some that are just like Trump-loving Republican kids.
I was reading an interesting article about this white pride rally, or it was a convention or something along those lines. And they had all these thought leaders of the groups, and there was a huge argument inside the group about whether or not Jewish people qualified as capable of participating in this white pride, white nationalism ideology.
Yeah, I can see that because that isn't like held by everyone. The hatred of Jews necessarily.
No, and there's a lot of pretty racist Jews too.
Yeah,
who want to exist in a society without certain minorities.
So the term alt-right is interesting. It's kind of like socialism. How there's these different like observations of what people or interpretations of how people use the word. Because alt-right, if you were like going to use a dictionary definition, would be more of an anti-Semitic white nationalist movement.
I think you'd have to go back to Richard Spencer, who coined the term.
Yeah. So then people, when they get lumped into the category alt-right, feel like that's an unfair characteristic, but it's come to mean different things, just kind of that outsider, far-right ideology. It doesn't necessarily have to be stemmed around like liking actual Nazis, but like figures like Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro, I do still see them as kind of like alt-right figureheads, even though they're not of that anti-Semitic mold.
Because they do affiliate with people who might affiliate with white nationalists.
And actually, when people started using the term alt-right and we started hearing about it in the media, and that it wasn't necessarily attributed to Richard Spencer initially, he kind of came forward saying that he had been using it and kind of took credit for this whole online right-wing movement going on right now.
Yeah. I mean, before alt-right really existed, there was things like neo-reactionaryism, NRX is what it was short by, or Dark Enlightenment.
What are these?
These are things that kind of predated the alt-right by maybe 4 or 5 years. But a lot of them were coming out of Silicon Valley, just a lot of black pill ideologies.
Were they associated, like, were they more libertarian types?
They were, libertarian types with the idea that there was some sort of information that was unacceptable. They thought things that were being hidden from public discourse.
And when was that, like, the prime time of that?
I want to say, like, 2010.
Okay.
There's a person, I forget her name.
Was
it was like Moldbug or something. She was a trans woman, but she was arguing that, Silicon Valley was trying to create this multicultural wasteland so that the elites could rule the world.
Was it kind of not a direct response, but like another movement that popped up as Occupy was happening?
No, I think it predates the Occupy movement by a couple years. I think it was about 2007, 2008 when it's not Memphis, but it's like Melchius. I don't know. I've only seen it written. Melchius Moldbug, I think was the name.
Fun name.
Yeah, but they were just arguing that nerds are the supreme leaders and they should be deified. And, people with 160 IQs cannot even relate to you peasants with up to 115 IQs. So the elite in Silicon Valley should be looked at as the new gods of society.
Wow. Was this then, it kind of reminds me of like the pickup artist culture.
I don't know enough about the pickup artist culture to say.
All these little offshoots are so bizarre.
I know that pickup artist culture is kind of broad ranging.
Yeah.
There's the kind of devious, like mean and like manipulative side, and then there's the just generalized rules which might be kind of misogynistic, but no one would debate you if you said, "Oh, there's a formula to get guys to like you."
Yeah.
They'd be like, "Yeah, of course."
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, there is various levels of how toxic this is, and some of it is harmless and good advice, self-improvement. But
if you're intentionally
there's a
telling
rabbit
people
hole.
to go out and manipulate these people and hurt their self-esteem,
be as degrading as possible with the goal of tricking them to have sex with you. Yeah, I mean, God, there's a lot of these offshoots of these modern
and I think
right-wing factions.
they just all sort of came together for the alt-right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now a couple months later, they have Trump in office. A lot of them don't like what they're seeing. They have disagreements with each other, with the ones who do like what they're seeing, and maybe they disagree with why they disagree with Trump. And all of a sudden, these cracks are becoming way more clear.
Yeah, and a lot of it's, I mean, the whole group stems in just like resentment and anger towards people. So it's not the best group to build a network because you just have that inherent distaste for humanity to begin with.
Yeah, they can only oppose things when, as soon as they get power and they're asked to create something, they shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how they function, and that's what just the conservative echo chamber in media is used for. It's just not prepared to handle actually having power. It's about achieving it, but they don't know what to do once they have it.
Which is very funny because you'll hear people still talk about Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I know.
She has no power. She's had no power for so many years.
Yeah, for real. We're looking at, what, like 6 years at least that she's even had a position?
Been out of Secretary of State?
Yeah. So they need those constant scapegoats.
It's funny when you talk to them and they think that Hillary Clinton is the most revered leftist in the world. Like, oh, I don't like Hillary Clinton. It's like, okay, I don't care. Neither do I really, but probably for different reasons.
Their rallying cry is, I mean, it kind of relates to how we started the show and the whole phoneless situation, but it's just that PC culture and just trying to make improvements towards groups of people and minorities is just ruining the country and just classic family values. That's the thing that they can all agree on. And then they just escalate
weird.
And amplify these things as problems in society where it's like, how often do any of these, like, trans people getting upset about misgendering them occur in your life where that is the main problem that we need to worry about?
yeah, I have a feeling that it never happens to them in real life. The only time it occurs to them is when they go out of their way to harass them online.
Yeah.
Or bait them into doing something like, I didn't do anything bad. I just did I'm not hitting you, and punching their fists
And
like inches from their face.
But it seems so prevalent to them because they're just constantly
seek it out.
consuming media of it. So it just appears in their world that it's occurring all the time. But yeah, when is the last time any of them had ever experienced anything that they're so focused on in the culture war?
Have I told the story about the cook I used to work with, Jose, at a restaurant?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
So Jose was this guy who worked at my restaurant. He was a chef. And I don't know, we were friends at work and stuff, and he asked me to hang out one night, play cards with his brother and some of his friends. So we go over to his house. First of all, it's an apartment. His apartment's empty except for like some lawn chairs and like a patio table.
Yeah.
And then I guess there's a TV on the floor in the corner. And he's like, "Oh, you want to watch some TV?" And I'm like, all right. So we're flipping through channels. He flips by Fox News, stops, and then we just silently watch. I think it was Bill O'Reilly for like 4 minutes, and I don't say anything. I'm trying to figure out like, I've never heard you say anything politically. Do you like this? And then he just goes out and says, the only thing that could have made me more comfortable, because I was like, what is going on right now? Why do you want to watch this with me?
Yeah.
And he just turns to me and says, you know what? Sometimes I think I just watch this stuff to get pissed off. He's like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And that's how that whole world functions, is that they just consume things to make them mad.
Yeah. There's a certain cathartic element to seeing things that upset you because you're like, oh, makes me feel alive to be angry.
That's what's going on in YouTube right now. There's a whole situation with Steven Crowder and Carlos Maza from Vox. So Steven Crowder's a right-wing commentator, so-called comedian, and Carlos Maza. What did I just say? Carlos Maza makes these videos on Vox. If you've ever watched one, you probably know who he is. But Steven Crowder said all these homophobic things that were really just mean. And the problem is that Steven Crowder's fans started harassing Carlos Maza. Like he was doxxed, so his address was released, his phone number was released, and there was just a barrage of these Crowder fans harassing him and bothering him. So he made a plea to YouTube to like shut down Steven Crowder because he's being harassed, and they did take an action on it. They demonetized Crowder, and then people got so outraged about it that they walked it back and said he could be, that there would be no further punishment if he took off the link to a shirt that he sold that said
and
socialism.
it wasn't related to the mocking of this guy?
Which part?
Well, they were asking him to take a shirt off this website?
Well, the shirt said socialism is for figs, apparently, but it just looks like you're saying the slur for gay people, with a picture of Che Guevara with his pinky in a, what do you call that? A flamboyant manner. So it's clear what it's implying. So, yes, they changed it to you have to take that shirt down from your video descriptions. And
so he doesn't have to take it off his store. He just has to
he just
the
has
link
to
away.
take it off on YouTube. But then people have rallied around Crowder in the name of free speech, and the whole thing's just become a mess. Steven Crowder's somehow came out as the victim in all this when we'll play some of the things he said, but it's the whole thing's a mess.
So
YouTube with how they run the company, they cannot figure out what is acceptable on their platform.
That's why we need to nationalize YouTube.
We absolutely do. I mean, that's what the problem is.
Because it is kind of the only medium of its type. There's other video hosting sites, but none really compare to YouTube.
And yeah, it's a larger media platform than the local or the nightly news nowadays.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. These are the things that we absorb most of our communication through, and it's completely monopolized by these large corporations.
The way that it's set up, it is there to encourage people like Steven Crowder who have just like outrageous content, controversial content, because that's what's going to get views, and then that's what they can sell to advertisers.
Yeah,
so
it
the more
drives
provocative your content, the better for YouTube.
I'm sure he's doing great right now.
Yeah, he is. He's. It's kind of ridiculous how many people have come to his defense over this, because it's all that happened was he got demonetized for a short amount of time, and it's just caused a whole like backing of him, saying that it's okay to do what he said, which
But don't have those shirts.
yeah, it's the whole thing is a mess, and I'm with you. You gotta nationalize
Or even-
these huge tech companies.
I don't even need nationalization.
Just some
I would,
sort of-
like, make it a public commodity
Yeah, some
or a public resource.
a way to tackle this, because how it is set up.
Utility is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, that it's set up to be a continuing problem, and there isn't any attempts to figure out how they're going to proceed on with all this hate speech and free speech. That dynamic and debacle.
It's an issue that they're happy to ignore until it becomes a problem for their bottom line.
Yeah.
And then they'll handle that on a case-by-case basis in a very
Clumsy.
inconsistent, clumsy way that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they managed to make everyone upset with how they handled this. Like, not one person was happy with the actions they took. Eric, we have to take a trip to San Francisco. A rat-infested pop-up bar is opened this weekend.
Real rats?
Real rats.
How is this?
Guests can
How is
hold,
this?
play, cuddle with domesticated rats from a rodent rescue in the bar. So let's see. Tickets to the San Francisco Dungeon are $50, include a signature welcome rat tail. I mean cocktail, the author says. Funny. A full San Francisco Dungeon tour, 30 minutes of playtime with the rats, and exclusive
Oh, this is an actual
cash
dungeon.
bar access. So, baby, we're going to the rat bar.
How does that pass the health code?
Maybe because it's a pop-up? I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like the restrictions on pop-ups are pretty flimsy, but
San Francisco must have loose health codes. But yeah, I'm stoked. Rat bar coming up, baby.
no thanks. They have those for cats too, right? That always sounds
Cat
gross
bar?
too. No, cat cafes.
A cat cafe?
Where it's like cats shed so much. You're gonna have so much hair in your coffee.
I never heard of those.
There's some even in Minneapolis. They got really big in Japan, I think, initially.
Well, I'm a fan of animals being at bars.
So am I. I give you a hard time for loving rats, but at the same time, I love seeing rodents out in the wild.
Yeah, man, that would be a fun night.
It's like when you hear people complaining all the time about fake service animals.
Yeah. Oh,
Who cares?
absolutely. My mom has to go through this because we have a minor league baseball stadium right down the street, and she brings Chihuahua, and there's a certain guy who works there, only one person who makes a big issue, and she just claims that it's an emotional support dog and she doesn't have the papers on her. But I agree. Just come on.
I get it if you're very allergic or
Yeah.
there's some sort of health reason.
Especially outside, though. It's the animals
Oh,
are fine.
outside?
Yeah.
Yeah, what the hell?
But
And I've met your dog. You say it's a
Yes.
Chihuahua and people have a mental image of something. It's the most quiet dog on the earth.
It is. It's very sweet and friendly too.
You brought it into that one bar just in your jacket, and it was just poking its out, looking around, completely quiet for like 3 hours.
You're right. So yeah, it's a very unintrusive Chihuahua. But back to rats. Octopuses could be the next lab rats, according to a scientific study.
What?
Scientists are investigating the possibility of octopuses as the new version of lab rats.
Because lab rats are at least mammals. Octopus seems so alien to us.
Yeah, I mean, octopuses are definitely the closest thing to an extraterrestrial, but they have complex organs and
Yeah, not ours.
but apparently there's something of use that scientists have found. So, interesting, but yeah, confusing because, man, I've heard that octopus DNA is extraterrestrial currently. They can't classify it as anything of this earth.
Because
so
it's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's
branched off.
Mm-hmm. So,
I know that they have separate nervous systems for each individual tentacle.
wow.
Like, obviously, the central nervous system goes to them, but then there's a separate. Some scientists should tell me I'm right.
Yeah. Then on another article about octopuses, and then another scientific article from the Atlantic, what ecstasy does to octopuses.
The question that scientists have always been asking themselves.
So the tagline is, despite their wacky brains, these intelligent animals seem to respond to the drug in a very similar way to humans.
I'm curious, the mechanism for ecstasy, it just releases dopamine? I don't know what it actually does. Because it seems like that would be a similar effect to like all animals, just because that's a pleasure center.
It releases serotonin.
Okay.
And
I know it has some sort of like empathy effect to it in humans.
yeah, and that's the thing. They contend that the octopuses become more social, and the brain activity, I mean, it's hit the same way. They do say that it is different than how mice react to it. Like
Interesting.
So for this, they have a more similar response.
Well, that's what's really interesting to me about mice and rats is that just how social they are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because their environments, I remember there was one episode of Hoarders where a man had an entire warehouse that he like didn't want to kill these rats because they belonged to his wife who was dead.
Uh-huh.
They got loose and he would feed them every day. And years down the road, there's probably 1 million rats in this warehouse. The entire floor is moving. And he throws bags and bags of dog food out to them every day to feed them. Well, eventually, the hoarder team goes in and starts collecting them all, bringing them to shelters or whatever bad place they have to actually go.
Yeah.
But there were almost no dead rats, and they didn't even turn on each other and start fighting each other, even when they're like packed in. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. My rats, they bond to other rats and to humans. But what's interesting is rats are one of the only species where the males paired together are friendlier than females are. They don't have a what do you call it? A dominance?
Yeah, so like humans?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't catch it at first, but that makes sense. But yeah, male rats are the friendly versions, where when you get pets, typically you get female versions, like of guinea pigs or birds.
Yeah, any sort of like animal pack we instinctually think of. One alpha male maybe, and then a bunch of breeding females. Or there's, a couple other men, but they're not the alpha, they don't breed.
Yeah, so rats, fabulous creatures of this earth.
Did you ever see the study, The Beautiful Ones?
I
think it was about mice.
I don't recall.
It was essentially someone created a mice utopia. One of those big terrarium things with all the tubes and tunnels. And he looked at the social hierarchy of basically a utopia for rats with limited space.
And is that the one where it was it was an addiction study?
I don't remember if it was an addiction. I know that the rats that were considered top of the hierarchy, they would spend all day. They eventually died because they would just spend all day grooming themselves.
Well, I remember that there was a similar study of creating a rat paradise, and they found that in that environment, the rats were able to stop using cocaine until they killed themselves.
Yeah, sure.
Where the ones in like less ideal situations continued to do the drug till they died.
When they're given stimulation in other forms,
Yeah.
they'll go try to do that as opposed to just hitting the drug lever over and over if they're in an empty cage.
Yeah, so then people argue that that is how you could deal with it in real life, is just meet people's material conditions to have a healthy, stable environment.
Give
more
them
likely to
motivation
succeed.
not to do drugs.
Yes.
Which is kind of like the case study of, I guess it's not a case study, but just the example of people leaving Vietnam. When they were in Vietnam, they were using opiates at an incredible rate.
Mm-hmm.
And when they came back, a lot of them were still using opiates, obviously, but not nearly at the rate they were in Vietnam.
And a big reason for that, though, was it was a different time where in America, like finding heroin,
Very hard.
yeah, it was reserved to the seediest parts of the country, like the
I could
worst
see that being an element.
urban, like most dangerous areas. So people just weren't able to acquire it because it just didn't exist around here. So a lot of them got off of it. Whereas if you had that same war taking place now with people returning, it would be a complete different nightmare.
I don't know, though. I think there is some truth. Obviously, probably more people would stay addicted. But there is some truth to when people have hope for the future, or you give them opportunities, they don't turn to drugs when they would if they were utterly hopeless.
Yeah, sure. But I do contend that it would be a lot worse if you put them in today's environment.
I would agree.
Then.
I would agree with that.
On with drugs, a Florida man claims the cocaine on his nose was not his, the deputies say.
Well, did he use someone else's?
He was arrested and told the deputies that the cocaine he found on his nose wasn't according to him. During a traffic stop, he's a 20-year-old, and he had white powder all around his nostrils. He had a small bag of powdered cocaine concealed on him, and they found a bunch of other drugs, but when they asked him about it, he said, no, not mine. For the cocaine on his face.
That's always the best option. Say nothing or say nope.
Yeah, might as well. I mean...
It's not a winning formula to admit to it.
Yeah, so good move, good move.
Also, you know what I heard about the Florida? There's the Florida man joke, right?
Yeah.
The meme.
Mm-hmm.
He's always crazy. He's wild. The reason why most of those stories come out of Florida is because Florida's allowed to publish the names and the faces of these people just for being accused of things.
Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't know that. Because, yeah, it has that reputation. But, yeah, really, there's just morons everywhere.
Yeah, it's not like you haven't met a lot of people who do some insane things.
Huh. That's funny. I've never heard that before. But, yeah, that Florida man stereotype is huge and used all the time. But, yeah, you got dumb people anywhere. In fact, there's a study that a surprising number of Americans think chocolate milk comes from brown cows. They did a poll of about 600 people. 48% of them thought chocolate milk came from a brown cow or a different colored cow.
You say 48 people or 48%?
48%.
I can't believe it. What is this poll coming from?
It's an unscientific study, but...
Because I am the type who will just screw around with polls that I don't have any sort of respect for.
It was conducted by the Innovation Center of U.S. Dairy in April. It's actually 1,000 people, and that 48% said that chocolate milk came from brown cows.
Next, you're going to be telling me the moon's not made of cheese.
The moon's hollow, though.
Of course. What do you think the dark side of the moon means?
Yeah.
It's the interior side. There was a podcast I recorded, not a podcast, but a radio show I recorded earlier today on Connections Radio.
Uh-huh.
I had no idea how prevalent the child abuse was at the Children's Theater Company.
Okay,
in
yeah.
Minneapolis.
I saw the headlines, but I didn't read much into it.
They're claiming over 20 pedophiles were actively engaged in abusing children.
Wow.
Like the entire staff were either pedophiles or knew they were pedophiles and allowed it to happen.
It's so terrible. Like, why people like that get involved with children, like, because they seek it out.
And they must have some sort of network in this case where they are communicating with each other like, hey, this is a safe place to come.
I didn't know that it was that severe when I
was
saw the headlines about the Children's Theater.
And then the people still support them, and the Children's Theater is suing the woman who pressed charges and won for the court fees.
God. That's very unfortunate.
So boycott the Children's Theater. If you have kids enrolled there, take them out immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to go to it when I was a kid, and I enjoyed it, but no, that is just absolutely unacceptable. If you yourself have kids, though, what you can do for them is get them an analog clock, because psychologists recommend that
Segue.
that kids use analog clocks, because a lot of them they found do not know how to read them, but an analog clock is a good way for kids to see the movement of time.
Yeah, I remember I was in maybe 11th grade, and someone in the class said, when is the class over?
Oh, because of the clock?
And the teacher was, just look at the clock, it's right there.
Yeah.
I can't read those.
Oh, wow.
Which is insane.
And
that
it's
you
got to
could-
be so much worse now with cell phones and just electronics.
Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, I understand the position that why are we learning things that are outdated? Like, I don't think we should spend an entire year of third grade teaching kids how to write cursive.
Yeah, 100% with you on that.
But also, I don't know, analog clocks, you're going to encounter them. You're always going to encounter them because they're not knocking Big Ben over anytime soon.
Yeah, but what this found was that it's healthy for kids to be aware of this, because a clock moves in a way that you visualize as it moves, and you develop how long certain things take.
Interesting.
Whereas just numbers, you don't have that association, because there's no visual component of how much time has elapsed.
Yeah, because if you've ever looked at a digital clock for like an entire minute, it seems like it takes forever for that number to change.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm with it. I found that interesting that they discovered that, but I do recognize how looking at a clock does make an impact on just how long things take. All right, folks, that's all for this week. As always, remember, prosecute the Bush administration for war crimes. We're coming for you, bastards.
Our enemies are innovative and resourceful, and so are we. They never stop thinking about new ways to harm our country and our people, and neither do we.